Let's go on to our chapter now. Chapter kya? This topic of hydrogen, which is water. Now, when we're talking of water, we know that water, that is when we're looking at the earth, water that occupies almost 3/4 of the earth's surface. So that is the maximum amount of substance which is present on the earth. Okay? 3/4 of the earth's surface. 2/3 of our human body, 2/3 of human body, that also consists of water. Now, because water has the capability of dissolving many substances, innumerable number of substances, in fact, almost all the substances, therefore, it is also known as a universal solvent. Okay? It is going to be known as the universal solvent. When we are looking at the physical properties, of water, it is seen that pure water, that is going to be, you know what the physical properties are. Pure water is colorless, tasteless, and odorless. It has no taste, no smell, no odor, and when we are talking of thick layers, it gives us a bluish tinge in thick layers. You've seen that when you're looking at sea or you're looking at rivers, the water gushing in the rivers, that seems to be blue in color. In ponds also, in lakes also, the water has a blue tinge. That is because of scattering of light, Tyndall effect. Okay. फिर उसके बाद we have that it freezes. We know that it freezes at 0 degree centigrade, and the boiling point, that is going to be 100 degree centigrade. This all we know. Then it has a maximum density of 1 gram per centimeter cube at 4 degree Celsius. Right? So it has a maximum density of 1 gram per centimeter cube at 4 degrees Celsius, and it is polar. This also we know because of the electronegativity difference between hydrogen and oxygen. It is polar and it has a bent shape. So this is what the shape of water is, having sp3 hybridization, and the bond angle, that is reduced to 104.5 degrees because of the lone pair repulsion which is going to be present in water. It also has a very high dielectric constant. Okay? It is going to have a high dielectric constant. It is a poor conductor of electricity. Pure water, when we are talking of, it is poor conductor of electricity. For it to conduct electricity, we add certain acid to it, H2SO4 is added, and then the electrolysis of water, that is done, and that is known as acidulated water. Otherwise, if you are taking pure water, electrolysis of pure water cannot be done because it hardly dissociates, and therefore it's a poor conductor of electricity. Now it exists, we know that when we are talking of room temperature, it exists in liquid state. The existence of liquid state of water can be explained on the basis of intermolecular hydrogen bonding which is present in water, as a result of which the forces of attraction, they are going to be stronger, and water exists as an associated molecule, therefore it exists as a liquid. So when we are talking of chemical properties, we see that water, that is going to be neutral. We already know about this, equilibrium में हमने पढ़ा है. It is going to be neutral with a pH of 7, right? pH, that is going to be 7. So when we are looking at the dissociation of water over here, we know that water that is going to dissociate as H positive and OH negative, where K, that is going to be HW into OH negative upon concentration of H2O. Now as the concentration of water, that is going to be taken as constant, right? So when we are taking the concentration of water as constant, so K into that constant, that is known as ionic product of water, which is given as the product of concentration of H positive into OH negative. Okay? Now when in pure water we say that the concentration of H positive, that is going to be equal to concentration of OH negative, and that is equal to 10 raised to power minus 7 at room temperature, the room temperature which is taken as 25 degrees centigrade. Number 2, it reacts with active metals. It reacts with active metals by liberating hydrogen. So it is reacting with sodium plus H2O, it is going to give us 2NaOH plus H2, right? Or if the same reaction that is taking place with magnesium, it is going to give us magnesium hydroxide plus 2H2. So this is how it is going to liberate hydrogen. Less active metals, for example, if we are taking steam over here, zinc over here, zinc is only going to react with steam because of the less reactivity of zinc. Okay? So here when it is reacting with zinc, it is going to liberate again hydrogen. And similarly, if you are taking iron, iron also has less reactivity. Right? Now this is going to again react with steam because of its less reactivity to give us Fe3O4 plus 4H2. Right? So this is the, you can say, reactions of this thing. Now over here when we are talking of chemical properties of water, we've already studied that it is neutral in nature, it reacts with active metals. Now over here you need to remember that lead and copper, they decompose water only at a white heat. Otherwise, because lead and copper, they are very less reactive metals. So they will not react with water, they will also not react with steam. Over here they are only going to react with water at a particular, you can say, heat which is known as white heat. And silver and platinum, they do not decompose water at all. Okay? So because of the very less reactivity, they are not going to decompose water at all. Okay, so let's go on to now the third property, which is reaction with non-metals. The third property which we are going to do, that is reaction with non-metals. Now with non-metals, it reacts to liberate oxygen or ozone. So if we are doing with non-metals, as if we are doing it with fluorine, when we are reacting fluorine with water, we will see that oxygen that is going to be liberated. Or if we are taking again fluorine in water, the other compound which we may get over here is ozone. Plus ozone may be liberated over here. ठीक है? क्लोरीन के साथ जब हम लोग रिएक्शन करते हैं, तो it gives us a mixture of two acids. Plus HClO, and it is also seen that chlorine, when it is taken in dry conditions, that does not convert or that does not change blue litmus to red. But if you are taking moist chlorine, it will change blue litmus to red. The reason behind that is that it is giving us two different acids over here. One is HCl and the other one that is going to be HClO. Similarly, if you are reacting chlorine with water, in presence of sunlight, it is going to give us oxygen. Right? So if you are doing the reaction in presence of sunlight over here, it is going to give us oxygen. And if we are taking red hot coke, that is carbon, right? So red hot coke we are taking, when we are going to react it with water, it is going to produce water gas. Water gas that is a mixture of carbon monoxide and hydrogen. Okay? That is what water gas is. Then we have action on non-metallic oxides. Action with non-metallic oxides. With non-metallic oxides, it gives us the respective acids. For example, if we are reacting with carbon dioxide, it is going to give us carbonic acid. If we are reacting it with sulfur dioxide, it is going to give us sulfurous acid. If we are reacting it with sulfur trioxide, it is going to give us sulfuric acid and so on. So with all the non-metallic oxides, it has a tendency to produce acids, and that also explains the acidic character of all these non-metallic oxides. Okay? And with metallic oxides, it is going to yield bases. So when we are doing the action with metallic oxides, for example, if we are taking Na2O plus H2O, this is going to give us an alkali. So that also explains the basic character of metallic oxides. In a similar manner, if we are doing the reaction with calcium oxide, it is going to give us calcium hydroxide. ठीक है? फिर उसके बाद action with hydrides, carbides and nitrides. Next reaction which we are going to do, that is reaction with hydrides and carbides. When it reacts with hydrides and carbides, again it gives us different kind of products. Like for example, if we are taking hydrides is CaH2 plus, we are reacting this with water, this is going to give us calcium hydroxide plus 2H2. Right? So you can see over here it is giving us calcium hydroxide. But if we are taking carbides, in case of carbides over here, it is going to give us calcium hydroxide plus acetylene, C2H2. Okay? If we are reacting this with aluminium carbide, it is going to give us aluminium hydroxide and with that it is going to give us methane. So when we are reacting it with carbides, it is going to give us different kind of products depending upon the carbide which we are using. Then the next reaction which we have, that is a hydrolysis reaction. Over here, hydrolysis of many organic compounds can be done. For example, if we are taking CH3COONA, sodium acetate, and we are dissolving it in water, it is going to give us an acid plus an alkali. Right? So this hydrolysis reaction you've also done in equilibrium. It is the opposite of neutralization reaction. So we are hydrolyzing the salt to give us acid plus base. In a similar manner, if we are taking a salt of a weak acid and a weak base, the same kind of reaction is going to take place. We are going to get CH3COOH plus NH4OH. Okay, so these are the hydrolysis reactions. The next reactions which we have, they are the decomposition reaction. Okay, so the next type of reaction which we are going to do, that is decomposition reaction. To decompose means that to decompose into its respective elements. So water when heated at 25 degrees Celsius, 2500 degrees Celsius, because water is very, very stable. So it will only decompose into its respective elements at a very high temperature of 2500 degrees Celsius. Generally what is done over here is an electric spark that is going to be given, and the voltage of that electric spark that is very high. Now even at this high temperature, it is only 4% of water which is going to be decomposed. पूरा का पूरा फिर भी decompose नहीं होता, so that tells us that water that is going to be a very stable compound. Okay. फिर उसके बाद next we have, what do we understand by the term water of crystallization? Water of crystallization means, you must have seen there are many salts which are hydrated in nature. The water of crystallization is the water which is present in the crystalline state of many salts. For example, if you're taking copper sulfate dot 5H2O. Okay, so over here this dot 5H2O, that is going to be water of crystallization. As soon as you heat copper sulfate dot, this is pentahydrate we call it, as soon as we are going to heat this, it will immediately lose its water of crystallization. So copper sulfate, when it has water of crystallization, it is going to be known as hydrated water of crystallization, and this is hydrated copper sulfate, this is going to be blue in color. Jaise we are going to heat it, this is going to give us copper sulfate plus 5H2O. The crystalline structure of copper sulfate over here, that is going to be distorted, and the color changes from blue to white. So when it loses its water of crystallization, it becomes powdery substance rather than a crystal. In a similar manner, we have many other substances. This is known as blue vitriol. Okay, we have MgSO4.7H2O, which is known as Epsomite or Epsom salt. Okay, we have washing soda. Washing soda. So all of these, they are going to have water of crystallization. Water is also used as a catalyst. There are many reactions in which water that is going to be used as a catalyst, right? Generally perfectly dry gases which do not react, as I just gave you the example of HCl. Chlorine which does not dissociate otherwise, or which does not convert blue litmus red in presence of moist conditions, it is going to be acidic in nature. Similarly, when we are taking the bleaching action of chlorine, so bleaching action of chlorine will also only take place in presence of water. If there is no water and we are taking dry chlorine, then bleaching action does not take place. At a similar, you can say type, when we are taking sulfur dioxide also will only bleach in moist conditions. So there are many reactions which can only take place in moist conditions to give us the particular reactions. Therefore over there water that is going to be used as a catalyst. ठीक है? फिर उसके बाद we have, what are the tests for water? What are the tests for water? When we are talking of tests of water, one, this we have already done. When we are going to take anhydrous copper sulfate, that is white in color, as soon as we will add water to it, it will give us a blue color. That means that is the test of water, that water has been added. Okay. Then water that is going to react with calcium carbide to give us acetylene, and acetylene that is going to burn with a bright flame. So that is another test for water which we can take. Okay. फिर उसके बाद हमारे पास next आता है why the density of ice is less than water. This is a very important question with respect to your boards. Competitions में तो इसके से जो points आएंगे I'll tell you कि कौन से आते हैं. The question over here is that why density of ice is less than water. Now to understand that, we first need to see the structure of ice. When we are looking at the structure of ice, in case of ice there are going to be hydrogen bonds which are present. Okay? So it has a kind of hexagonal structure which has a lot of air spaces in it. So let's see what is going to be the structure over here. We have oxygen. The basic structure which we are going to draw over here is Then we have hydrogen. You know that to every oxygen there are two hydrogens which are going to be bonded. Okay, covalently bonded. Then this hydrogen is going to be bonded by hydrogen bond to another oxygen. ठीक है, फिर आ गया एक और हाइड्रोजन, फिर उसके बाद हमारे पास आ जाएगा एक और ऑक्सीजन. ठीक है, then we have hydrogen over here, then we have oxygen, hydrogen. So if there is one covalent bond, there is going to be one hydrogen bond which is present over here. So if there is one hydrogen bond, there is going to be one covalent bond, there is going to be one hydrogen. So if there is going to be alternate hydrogen and covalent bonds. Okay. फिर उसके बाद हमारे पास ये ऑक्सीजन आ जाएगा. ऑक्सीजन के बाद we are going to get another hydrogen. ठीक है, और फिर उसके बाद we will get oxygen, hydrogen and oxygen. Right? So you can see over here oxygen, hydrogen. You can count the number of oxygens which are present in order to remember the structure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 oxygens which are present. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hydrogens which are present. Now if oxygen is bonded, you're showing it bonded by a covalent bond. The next bond is a hydrogen bond, covalent bond, hydrogen bond, covalent bond, hydrogen bond. So this is how you're going to show it. Now each of the oxygens, it is going to be bonded to two hydrogens. So that you can show outside this hexagonal ring. We have hydrogen over here. Okay? Then we are going to have one hydrogen over here, one hydrogen over here, one hydrogen over here, one hydrogen over here, and then we have another hydrogen over here. Right? So you can see over here that there is this empty space which is present inside the structure of ice. It is this hollow space which is going to make ice lighter than water. So as soon as you put ice in water, what happens? Ice starts floating, although it is a solid. The reason behind that is these air spaces which are found inside the structure of ice. So when we're looking over here, let's just jot down the following points. The points which you need to remember. Number 1, you can write down, in ice, each molecule of water is surrounded by three neighboring water molecules. One molecule of water is surrounded by three neighboring water molecules. ठीक है? Then number 2, in water, each water molecule has 4 water molecules surrounding it. So ice में there are 3, and in water there are 4 surrounding water molecules. So if you get a question over here that in ice, one oxygen that is surrounded by how many hydrogens? So you can see one oxygen that is surrounded by 1, 2 and 3 hydrogens. 2 which are covalently bonded and 1 which is going to be hydrogen bonded through hydrogen bond. Okay. So in case of ice, each molecule is surrounded by 3 water molecules, and in case of water, each water molecule that is surrounded by 4 water molecules. Right. Now what is going to happen? When we are going to heat ice, when ice is heated, a lot of hydrogen bonds, they are going to be broken because we are increasing the temperature, right? So these molecules, they are going to move into the open spaces and they start coming closer to each other. Okay, so water molecules, when hydrogen bonds will be broken over here, these water molecules, they will start coming inside these free spaces and they start coming closer to each other than they were in the solid state. Okay, so as a result of that, the density that is going to increase. Okay, and the density that becomes maximum at 4 degrees Celsius. So that is the reason why density, that when contraction is going to happen, volume that is going to contract, It is but obvious that the hydrogen bonds are breaking, the molecules are coming together, they are coming closer to each other. As a result, volume that is going to contract from 0 degree to 4 degrees Celsius. So at 4 degrees Celsius, the hydrogen bonds, all of them, they are going to be progressively broken. So once they are progressively broken, the density of water that is going to be maximum at 4 degrees Celsius. Okay? So this is what water is. Now water that is of two types. One that is known as hard water and the other one that is known as soft water. So let's understand hard water and soft water. Hard water and soft water. It is seen that soft water, how do you discriminate or you distinguish between the two? Soft water that produces lather with soap. Okay? Hard water produces an insoluble scum. Hard water that is going to produce an insoluble scum before it is going to form lather. So generally it is seen that hard water that does not lather with soap. Okay? Now what does or why does this you can say that the property of hard water exists? What is the cause of hard water? It is seen that the hardness of water that is going to be generally caused by presence of bicarbonates and sulfates of calcium and magnesium. Okay? So this is going to be the cause of hard water. So if we are taking soap, this is calcium, you know what soap is. Soap is going to be the sodium salts of higher fatty acids. So if you are taking over here, this is the long chain of the soap. This is going to form a scum over here. Right? So this particular compound which is formed, this is insoluble in water and it is going to form a scum. Now hardness of water is of two types. The first one that is known as temporary hardness. The temporary hardness that is going to be due to bicarbonates of calcium and magnesium. That is due to the presence of bicarbonates of calcium and magnesium. Now this temporary hardness that can be easily removed by boiling. So if you are taking calcium bicarbonate, if we are taking calcium bicarbonate over here, this is the formula for calcium bicarbonate. Now if we boil this, this is going to give us an insoluble calcium carbonate which is going to settle below, and we have water whose hardness has been removed. Okay? So this water is not going to have any hardness because the hardness due to calcium bicarbonate that is removed as calcium carbonate that is going to settle down. In a similar manner, if it is due to magnesium bicarbonate and we are boiling it, we are boiling the water, again magnesium carbonate is going to settle down and we have soft water in which the temporary hardness has been removed. Okay? So this is how we can remove the temporary hardness. Now temporary hardness can also be removed by another process which is known as the Clark's process. Right? It is known as the Clark's process. In this case, we are going to react the bicarbonates with slaked lime. So we have over here calcium bicarbonate we are reacting it with slaked lime over here. Again, the insoluble calcium carbonate that is going to settle down. And the hardness that can be removed by this process. The second type of hardness which we have, that is permanent hardness. The second type of hardness, that is permanent hardness. Now the permanent hardness that is going to arise due to sulfates and chlorides. It is going to arise due to sulfates and chlorides of both calcium and magnesium. Right? Now this type of hardness that cannot be removed by mere boiling, we need to undergo certain chemical processes by which the permanent hardness that needs to be removed. Okay? Now the substances which are used to remove permanent hardness, they are known as water softeners. So what are water softeners? They are substances used to remove permanent hardness. Okay? They are going to be known as water softeners. So let's go on to the type of water softeners which we have. The first one, that is washing soda. Washing soda. It is seen that washing soda helps us to remove both temporary and permanent hardness. Right? Both temporary and permanent hardness that is going to be removed by washing soda. So how does it remove it? We know that the permanent hardness is due to chlorides of calcium. We reacted with sodium carbonate. When we are going to get calcium carbonate, which is going to be insoluble, which settles down, and sodium chloride, which is going to be soluble in water. So this is how the permanent hardness that can be removed. In a similar manner, if we have calcium sulfate, again the insoluble part, calcium carbonate, that is going to settle down, and the soluble part that goes into water. Right? Now in case of sodium carbonate, sometimes even caustic soda is used. Now what is this caustic soda which we are using over here? Caustic soda is nothing but NaOH. Okay? So we're taking MgCl2 plus caustic soda over here. This is going to be the reaction where the permanent hardness that can be easily removed. Okay, the second water softener which we are going to use, that is known as permutate. Right? Now this permutate, that is basically a zeolite. It is a catalyst kind of a thing, and it is a complex substance of sodium, or you can say that it is sodium aluminium silicate. Okay, this permutate, it has the general formula Na2 Al2 Si2O8. Okay, and it has certain water of crystallization, which is XH2O. Now in this case, you will see that the exchange of the ions that is going to take place, such that the silicates, aluminium silicates, which are going to be formed over here, they are going to be insoluble in water and they can be easily removed. For example, if we are reacting this with hard water which consists of calcium, right? So over here calcium that is going to replace sodium, and this calcium aluminium silicate, this is going to settle down in water, whereas the sodium that gets dissolved in water. So the permanent hardness that can be removed by this. Okay, so again both temporary and permanent hardness that can be removed by the help of permutype. Then the third method which we have, that is we use a softener which is known as Calgon. Calgon is sodium phosphate. Okay, so the formula is NaPO3(6). Again over here there is going to be you can say the exchange of the ion that is going to take place. It is more commonly represented as a coordinate compound. Right? So when this is going to react with calcium sulfate, we are going to substitute the sodium over here by calcium. So we are reacting this with calcium sulfate over here. This is what the reaction is going to be. The sodium that is going to be substituted by calcium. So what do we get over here? We will get so this is what is being formed over here. This is going to be insoluble and can be removed. A very common method of removing hard water or the removal of hardness of water is by ion exchange resins. This is what is chemically used to, commercially remove the hardness. Okay, so let's see what it is. So the fourth method which we are going to do by ion exchange resins. By ion exchange resins. Now ion exchangers or ion exchange resins, they are going to be synthetic products which are generally manufactured in the laboratory. Now over here they consist of granular insoluble organic acid resins. Organic acid resins having large molecular masses. They are going to have large molecular masses. Okay. Now over here, generally they consist of two groups. Either they will consist of a sulfonic group or they might consist of an carboxylate acid group, COOH group. The anion exchanger, we have two types of exchange resins over here. The first one, which is known as anion exchangers. The anion exchangers, they contain giant molecules with basic groups. Okay? They are going to be giant molecules with basic groups over here derived from amines. So basically these basic groups, they are going to be derived from amines. And the second we have ion exchange ranges which are going to be cationic. So these are what cationic ion exchange ranges are, which are derived from acidic groups, and those acidic groups may be either SO3H or it may be COOH. Okay. Now over here the ion exchange ranges exchanges, they are going to remove all the soluble impurities which are going to be present in water. Now what is going to be the disadvantages of hard water? There are many disadvantages in our day-to-day life of hard water. Number one, it is seen that the hardness up to 100 to 150 picometers, that is quite tolerable. But if the hardness that grows above 150 picometers, in that case the vegetables, the pulses, whatever we are cooking, that is not going to cook properly. Number one. Number two, they are going to stick, the hard water में जितना भी scum होता है, that is going to stick on utensils. Because they are going to stick on utensils, there is going to be a large wastage of fuel which is going to take place over here. Okay? Because the heat is not given to the utensils, it also spoils the luster of the utensils. Now when we are talking of laundry purposes, it is not going to lather with soap, so we are going to waste a lot of soap over here, and still the cleansing action that does not take place to a maximum point, right? When we are talking in industries, it is seen that water which contains iron and manganese, that is unfit for dyeing purposes, because it does not help the dyes to stick to the cloth, so dyeing cannot take place. Also in large boilers, when hard water that is used in large boilers, the scum that starts depositing on the inner side of the boiler, as a result of which, again, what is going to happen? A lot of fuel that is going to be wasted. And because in boilers it is very difficult to remove this scum, sometimes even corrosion of the inner surface of the boilers that starts taking place. So this is what basically formation of scales is going to take place, because of which there is going to be corrosion of the inner part of the boilers that will take place. Okay? And then in formation of bubbles on the surface of water in the boilers, that is also going to cause wastage of fuel. Then what do we understand by another term, which is degree of hardness? This is the last topic of this particular section which we are doing over here, that is degree of hardness. Now degree of hardness, it is defined as the number of parts of calcium carbonate or equivalent to various calcium and magnesium salts present in million parts of water. Okay? Now this is going to be expressed in ppm. As we just now we studied that if the hardness of water is approximately 100 to 150 ppm, then that is acceptable. Above that, it is not going to be acceptable, or it is going to cause a lot of problems in our laundry, in our day-to-day life, in boilers, in industrial uses. So that is what degree of hardness is. Okay, that is the number of parts of calcium carbonate which is going to be present in million parts of water by mass. So only in 1 million, approximately 100 parts of calcium carbonate, that is acceptable. Is it clear? So with this we finish water. The next topic which we are left in this chapter is only a very small topic, which is hydrogen peroxide, which we will do tomorrow.